Welcome back to the channel. In today's video, we're going to talk about the top 5 worst elk hunting cartridges. Now, personally, this is going to be 5 cartridges I would never hunt elk with. Now, let's just get this out of the way before I start hurting people's feelings and destroying their favorite cartridge. What's the most important thing elk hunting? It's your shot placement. Just about any cartridge is going to kill an elk if you hit it perfectly. However, can you guarantee a perfect shot every single time? Yeah, I didn't think so. So you could call it insurance, like to go a little bigger as long as you can handle the recoil and you're good with it. Prefer to have some added insurance when I don't make the perfect shot. Number 5, 338 Winchester Magnum. Now I know what you're thinking. Wait a minute. This is like the quintessential elk cartridge, right? Well, I think the market's kind of saying something different. I think a lot of people are going away from 338s because of recoil. And I can understand. About 2 years ago, I shot a Model 70 featherweight in 338 Win Mag, and I'll be honest, it was pretty awful. There was a lot of recoil. The gun's only like 7 pounds. And we were just shooting a 225 grain factory loaded Accumont, only going probably 2800 tops. It was really rough to shoot. And, the newer generation of hunters are kind of sissies. They don't like recoil. And I can understand to an extent. And so, number 5, 338 Win Mag. If you aren't comfortable and are afraid to pull the trigger, you're going to make a really poor shot. And so that is the only reason I put 338 Win Mag in here. Now, if you practice a ton, you maybe even have a break, 338 Win Mag is a really good one. Coming in at number 4, couldn't do a video without featuring the great, wonderful 6.5 Creedmoor. Okay, the 6.5 Creedmoor. Sadly, it's probably going to be the most popular elk cartridge this fall. Man, you're just really limiting yourself in a 6.5 Creedmoor. This is not a long distance elk cartridge. It doesn't have the velocity to do that. It's also shooting a skinnier 6.5 bullet. Personally, for elk bullets, I'm doing 270 and bigger. So it doesn't make the cut as a good elk cartridge. Now remember what I said. This is the top 5 cartridges I will never use for elk hunting. Do I think people should elk hunt with a 6.5 Creedmoor? No. Coming in at number 3 is the 243 Winchester. 243 is a 6mm. So when I say 243 Winchester is not a good elk cartridge, I'm going to include just about every single 6mm. In fact, I will. 6mm, personally, I think is too small, too light of bullets. Now again, remember, if you make a perfect shot, just about any cartridge will work. So I know there's a lot of people that have hunted with 243 and have been successful. It's good for you. You got to really limit your distance and make a really good shot. Again, this is all about, making sure you have the added insurance. And the 243 just doesn't give it to you. Now, a lot of you will say that the 243 is a perfect little youth cartridge. So what alternatives would I give? Honestly, I would say 7mm 08 or 308 Winchester would be better elk cartridges than 243 and 6.5 Creedmoor. Another good option, better option, not a good option, is the 6.5 PRC. Not too shabby on the recoil, has the velocity that you'd want. Coming in at number 2. Sorry guys, I don't actually have the cartridge on hand with me, but this will give you a little bit of a hint. Yeah. Over the past year or so, 22 Creedmoor has become really popular. In fact, here's my hot take. I'd say within the next 5 years, it is going to be more popular than a 22 250 Remington for varmint shooting. So what is it? It's a 6.5 Creedmoor neck down to 22 caliber, and you can shoot some of the higher BC bullets. This one's kind of a medium weight, at least the BC is nothing spectacular, 374. But you could shoot up to like a 90 grain bullet that has the BCs in the 5s, which is pretty good for a 22 caliber. When you compare it to all the other cartridges, it's really not that great. So what the 22 Creedmoor has is velocity. It's fast. It's really fast. And I know a lot of people have been going to all sorts of places across the world and killing game with the 22 Creedmoor. Again, shot placement is king. But, oh man, there's just no insurance for me with a 22 Creedmoor. You're, again, I think, pretty limited on your range. Despite it going fast, the BCs are just too dumpy. I had a guy, and I think he was trolling, but I had loaded up just a classic 300 Weatherby with a 180 partition, and this is going over 3,200 feet per second. And he made a claim that his 22 Creedmoor is going to be a better elk cartridge than the 300 Weatherby. Now, what's really funny is this dumpy 180 grain partition has about the same BC as a 80 grain ELDM or ELDX in 22 caliber. So the 300 Weatherby, if you take out the equation of foot-pounds of energy, I understand that's an old metric, that it's not the end-all be-all, I'll say that. The 300 Weatherby still beats a 22 Creedmoor in wind drift and retained velocity with a 180 partition over a 22 Creed with an 80 grain ELDM. At number 1, the Rockside community really is going to hate me for this one, but oh well. 223 Remington. Now I know what most of you are thinking. Wait, 223 Remington on elk? Who's stupid enough to try that? Well, sadly, there's quite a few that are trying to push the limits on what you can kill with the smallest types of cartridges. And 223 Remington is the Rockslide's darling. Now, apparently, the bullet of choice for 223 Remington for these bigger game is the 77 grain tip Match King from Sierra. Not only is it a match bullet, it's a really dumpy BC bullet. To make a fun little comparison, that 77 grain tip Match King has the exact same BC as this dumpy 25 caliber 110 grain AccuBond. And you know, the 25 calibers are niche for a reason. They're all with really slow twists, so you have to shoot these lower BC bullets. The only difference between a 223 with the tip Match King and, well, my 257 Weatherby with the 110 AccuBond, other than the bullet construction, is my 257 Weatherby is shooting this, I don't know, 700 to 800 feet per second faster than a 223 Remington. We're going to entertain the thought for a second here, which is stupid. 223 Remington, we'll just put it in an AR length barrel. 18, probably a little long for an AR. But there's that Sierra tip Match King with the G1 of 420. Pathetic, really. Pushing it up to 65,000 PSI. Might not be the greatest idea, but we're going to do it. An 18-inch barrel gets us a little over 2,700 feet per second. That sucks. Let's say you shoot it in a bolt gun. So let's switch it to 22-inch barrel. Now you're up to 2,800 feet per second. Very anemic. Now you got to imagine a lot of guys are shooting 16-inch barrels and probably getting in the 2,600 feet per second range. Ouch. Is the 223 viable? All right, 77 grain tip Match King, dumpy BC of 0.420, 2,700 feet per second, which is pretty generous. Now, the energy, obviously these guys don't care about it, so, you know, I'll omit it. Whatever. 1247. Really low recoil. Realistically, if you can make a really good shot, you're limited to about 300 yards. But something that people don't really talk about, crowning the 223 is this amazing elk cartridge. Wind drift. That's terrible. 8 inches of drift in a 10 mile per hour wind at 300 yards, awful. And then the drop is not very good either. You know, about 15 inches of drop at 300. At 400, yeah, not fast enough for what I like to see for expansion. Obviously, the energy is nowhere close to what I want, and almost 15 inches of wind drift. Ouch. 33 inches of drop. Good grief, this is a terrible option. Now, I know what you 223 fanatics are going to say is it's really the bullet. It's the magic of the bullet. It just has such an amazing permanent wound cavity. Imagine this. Sierra makes the tip Match King in other calibers too. And look at this. A 308 Winchester, which is really not known to be a great Elk cartridge, really limited by its distance, absolutely destroys a 223 Remington. Okay, 2750, that's velocity with a 22-inch barrel. The recoil, guys, if you can't handle the recoil of a 308, I don't know what to say. Out to 300 yards, the bullet's going 200 feet per second faster than a 223, well over double the energy. And look at that, beats it handily in wind drift and drop. Out to 400 yards, the bullet's still going plenty fast enough to expand. Still actually have over 1,500 foot-pounds of energy and 4 inches less of wind drift and 4 inches less of drop. Just get a 308 Winchester. Appreciate you guys watching. Let me know in the comments what you think. I know a few of these are definitely hot takes. A lot of beloved cartridges for many. I'll see you guys in the comments section.